One of my clanmates dropped a new build idea into our Discord yesterday with a picture of the build and a simple post. Pretty decent solo legendary build. I put it together on my main character with a maxed out watch and gear. It is a very powerful build. But this got me wondering how well it would translate for a newer returning player who doesn't yet have maxed out gear pieces or watch levels. In this video, I'm going to show you the build with the gear I had or could purchase on my secondary character that does not have a maxed out watch. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, it's Agent Meat from Delta Tactical. This video is going to show you the new build, some options for setting it up depending on the type of content that you want to take on, and where you can pick up some of the pieces that are currently available this week at the vendors. So the build in a nutshell is a skill-based build. It's using a different approach for some of the gear than the meta build that I've shown you in the past. A typical meta build for skills would be 3 pieces of Empress, 2 pieces of Hannah Yu, and 1 piece of Wyvern, which maxes out the skill damage and gives you a cooldown of about 10.5 seconds. The armor on a build like that would end up giving you about 720k of armor, so you do not have a lot of survivability. You're relying on your skills doing the heavy lifting for you while you play in cover. That might not suit everybody's playstyle. What this build allows you to do is move out of cover. You've got very good armor. On this build, it's showing 1.1 million armor, and that's because my armor pieces are not maxed out and there's nothing spec'd into my watch. On a maxed out character with maxed out armor pieces, this ends up being 1.3 million armor. Because of Momento, you've also got 3% armor regen. And as you're going to see in the gameplay that follows this video, there was never really a point where my armor got more than about 10% down as I took shots. I was playing it conservatively because I hadn't yet played the build for any length of time. You can play out of cover and you can play quite aggressively with this, with your skills doing additional damage for you. If you play it as a traditional skill build, you can play challenging or heroic content with ease, and with a couple of tweaks, this is definitely a build that's suitable for legendary play. Let's get into a full build breakdown, and then I'm going to roll the gameplay at the end. So starting at the top, we're running the Technician Specialization. We need to run this on this build for the passive skill tier that the Technician class provides in order to get the skills up to tier 6. If you look at the stats on the side, from the core attributes from the gear pieces, there are 4 skill tiers, there are 3 armor cores, and 1 weapon damage core. We're getting the additional 2 from the passive from Technician, and from running 2 pieces of Brazos gear. For 1 piece, it gives you skill haste at 10%, and for 2 pieces, you're getting an additional skill tier. For the weapons that I've chosen, and again, this is simply because this character doesn't have the primary that I have on my main, if you have the capacitor, that would be the best choice for a primary for this build. Its benefit over the test subject, which you see here, is when you're at 40 stacks, your skills are doing far more damage. Inherently, it has more crit damage. Your crit damage would be at 75%, so the weapon actually does hit harder once its stacks are up. The test subject is an amazing second choice. It actually does slightly better base weapon damage. I haven't done anything with this one yet. I am going to recalibrate this from rate of fire to damage to targets out of cover. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So this is effectively as it dropped for me out of a cache. Its talent is perfectly in sync. This is one of the reasons that it is an excellent second choice, and I've seen some content creators argue that it's actually a better choice for most hybrid builds. This is not quite a true hybrid build, but it certainly could be classed in that vein. So perfectly in sync. Hitting an enemy grants plus 20% skill damage for 5 seconds. Using a non-shield skill or damaging an enemy with a skill grants plus 20% weapon damage for 5 seconds. Damage increases are doubled while both buffs are active at the same time. And the way you're running this is your skills are always out doing damage and you're firing at the enemy at all times. So you're getting plus 40% skill damage and plus 40% weapon damage while you're using this gun with your skills active. For the secondary, I've chosen to use the Scorpio because I have it. It is an incredibly powerful shotgun, probably the best shotgun in the game, and some would argue the best weapon in the game, because of its talent. Shooting a target applies stacks of venom, which last for 10 seconds. Increasing stacks add more severe debuffs to the target. So for 1 shot, you get poison. 3 shots, they get disoriented. 6 shots, they get shocked. 7 shots, targets take additional 20% damage from all sources, and stacks no longer increase, and then rinse and repeat. It will allow you to freeze targets in place with the shock, and then again, if you use this in concert with a skill build, your targets are taking an additional 20% damage from all sources. So on a team, they're taking more damage from everyone. With a skill build, your skills are doing additional damage. So it's a very good way of controlling crowds while you're playing. For the secondary, for the pistol, I'm using a card 45. You don't need the named version, the TDI card custom, for its skill tier in this particular case because we're actually at 6 skill tiers. But that would be another very good choice. Truly, the pistol is completely optional. For the skill pieces themselves, for the mask, I'm using one of the 2 pieces of Brazos. Brazos rolls with an armor core and then various different stats or attributes. On my main character, the way this has dropped for me was it had skill damage and I rolled skill haste. In this particular case, I think it was armor regen and health is the way this one dropped for me. So I'm leaving the armor regen alone and I put skill damage on it. It's important that all or most of your pieces have skill damage. To a lesser extent, it's less important that they have skill haste, and I'll explain that at the other end of this. For the bag, I'm running Momento. For PvP play, even up to legendary content, it's one of, if not the best, backpack in slot, and it's because of its unique talents. In the case of this build, for the short-term buffs, every time I pick up a trophy, with 1 red core, I'm getting 5% weapon damage. With 3 armor cores, I'm getting 30% bonus armor. And with 4 skill tiers, I'm getting 20% skill efficiency. Skill efficiency is all of your skill attributes rolled into one. At 20% skill efficiency, that means I'm getting an additional 20% skill damage, 20% skill haste, 20% skill duration, 20% status effects, and I can never remember the last one. I've got it written down somewhere, but I don't have it in front of me. And that's for your short-term buffs. So every time I run across a stack, and that's per stack, if I'm picking up multiples, these all increase. You'll see in some of the gameplay where I run across multiple stacks at the end of an engagement, I've got an incredible amount of bonus armor. And if you equate the bonus armor to the weapon damage and the skill efficiency, you can see how very powerful that is for a run-and-gun style hybrid build. Once you're fully stacked with your 30 stacks of trophies, which applies your long-term buffs, you're getting an additional 1% per stack, so 30% weapon damage, 30% skill efficiency, and 3% armor regen, which lasts for 5 minutes, which is 300 seconds. As soon as you pick up another trophy, that resets the cooldown. So as long as you're continuing to move and shoot, and you don't die, you will have those stacks. I'm then running 3 pieces of Empress. The 3-piece brand set bonus gives me 10% skill health, 10% skill damage, and 10% skill efficiency, and this will stack with the skill efficiency that I'm getting from Momento, and the skill damage that I'm getting from Momento, and the skill health that I'm getting from Momento. That was the other attribute. Again, in this case, I had to roll on kinetic momentum, so I had to accept what I had in terms of these. So I've got a fair bit of armor regen baked into this particular build. It's not as useful as what I've got on my main character. However, incredible survivability with this. One thing I do want to get into is it's very important that you put skill damage on all your pieces. The second attribute that you run with it, as I alluded to earlier, is less important that it be skill haste. You can target or tailor this build around the second attribute based on what type of content you want to take on. As an example, if I was going to go after legendary content, I would want these blue cores rolled to explosive resistance. And then I would use protection from elite mods rather than the skill haste mods that you see on the pieces that I've shown you so far. I didn't touch on that specifically, but I'm using 3 skill haste mods currently on this for the type of content that I'm going to be taking on. The 10.2% skill haste mods, I believe, are available currently at the main vendor in New York City. I'm going to double check that towards the end of the build. And then kinetic momentum, the talent for that is stacks increase your total skill damage by 1% and total skill repair by 2% up to 15 stacks per skill. They're lost when on cooldown. So at 15, I get an additional 15% skill damage out of this. So what I'm doing with this whole build is stacking skill efficiency and skill damage to maximize the benefit of the skills that I'm using. And then I am then free to move around because I'm getting from Momento additional weapon damage while the skills are active. Second piece of Empress International is the gloves, skill haste and skill damage. And the third piece is the knee pads, skill haste and skill damage. The last piece is Picaros. Some of you may not have Picaros yet, and you're wondering why I'm here at the not the theater settlement, but the campus settlement. Picaro's holster is currently available from the vendor right here for 15,548 credits. With that armor rating, that is basically one optimization away from perfect. It's got status effects. You simply roll that off for skill damage, and you've got a perfect holster with one optimization cycle. So for Picaro's holster, you want skill damage as your secondary attribute. You get weapon damage, and you get an armor core. And again, that completes the second piece of the Brazos. For the skills, I've played around with a bunch of different skills, and I keep coming back to these two because they are the most powerful combination for a build like this. You're going to want to use the assault turret and the striker drone. Mine happen to be tier 10, so they are doing additional damage. And that's character-wide, account-wide, so it doesn't matter which character I'm on. I get the benefit of that because I've applied that to my main character. So I'm doing an additional 10% damage with both of my skills. But as you can see here for the assault turret, it is a tier 6 turret. The duration is 222 seconds, and the cooldown as it sits right now is 14.2 seconds. I'm going to leave here and get my Momento stacks up just to contrast the difference in the damage numbers, and then I'm going to roll the gameplay at the other end of it. The striker drone is also a tier 6 drone. Its cooldown is 14.2 seconds, and its damage is 69,969. The rest of the stats for the build. The weapon is sitting right now at 81,706 for its weapon damage. It's at 10% crit chance, 25% crit damage, so you're not going to get a lot of benefit from that, but it certainly does help, and 55% headshot damage. Most of your damage is coming from base weapon damage rather than crits in this particular build. I'm at 1.12 million armor. There's no armor, or there is armor regeneration inherently in the build from the 2 armor regen attributes that I've got in there. But this is currently without the 3% armor regen that you're going to see from the Momento stacks. I've already showed you the skills, but we will show them up here as well. I'm getting an 85.5% skill haste bonus, which again brings your cooldown to 14.2 seconds. So that's the build in a nutshell. Bear with me while I go get my 30 Momento stacks just to contrast the difference. Then we'll wrap this portion of the video up and we'll get you into the gameplay at the other end. For the gameplay itself, in about 13 minutes, I took down 2 resource convoys, a territory control, and a heroic control point. So this thing does tear through NPCs. The world is set to challenging. So the things that I was able to do were all at challenging except for the control point because I hit the resource convoys. It took it up to a heroic control point. Momento, as you can see, the bottom, it looks like a flexed arm in white is fully stacked. And what I'm getting now is 97,220 weapon damage. None of the rest of the stats have changed. For the skills, the cooldown is now down to 12.2 seconds, and the damage is 129,717 for the turret. Same cooldown, and 81,631 for the damage. So Momento does add a fair bit to this, and then from a armor regen perspective, I'm up to 43,453 per second. So it's a fairly powerful build. Now, as I go collect this up, some of the changes that I would make. Again, in a perfect world where you've rolled skill haste in a lot of cases because your pieces actually had skill damage naturally on them. Depending on the type of content you want to take down, what I would do is roll on explosive. If I wanted to take on legendary, I would roll on explosive resistance everywhere I possibly could. and then use protection from elites mods where possible.
Safe area entered.
Hey, Agent, you looking to trade?
So currently both Skill Haste and Protection from Elites mods are available in New York City at the main vendor. He is currently selling a 10.1% Skill Haste mod and an 11% Protection from Elites mod. Max would be 13. I've gotten a number of 12s as I've played. I've never gotten I've yet to get a 13. 13 would be max. So this is certainly an option for you for both Skill Haste or Protection from Elites. And that's the other option that you have in terms of your attributes is you could, if you're running the capacitor where it's got 75% skill or crit damage, you could lean into that a little bit by speccing crit chance into your build in lieu of skill haste. The inherent skill haste that's on the build, if it's completely maxed out, will give you around 11 or 10.5 to 11 seconds of skill cooldown. If you remove all of that from the build, it takes it up to about 15 or 16 seconds. With Momento, as you saw with this one, I went from 14 to 12 seconds. So worst case, if you have no skill haste at all on the build, you're going to be at about 14, 15 seconds. So you can lean into crit chance and take advantage of the crit damage that's on the weapon. You could put explosive resistance on the build to protect yourself if you want to take on legendary content. You can swap out the mods for protection from elites to, again, protect you from those elites and the damage that they do. On my main character, the way that I'm going to set this up for legendary content is exactly that. I'm going to roll off the skill haste and put on explosive resistance, and I'm going to put the protection from elites mods on it. So I'm going to wrap the video up at this point. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And for everybody, please interact with the video in some way, either a like, a comment, or a share, as it does help the channel and allow me to get out to a wider audience. One thing I did not mention, the clan member who proposed this build is Fam. The link to the video he put together for his build and a legendary run will be linked in the description below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.
Hostile supply convoy detected. Detecting additional hostile contacts. Detecting additional hostile contacts.